Hi friends, welcome to WebChamp. In this video, I'm going to discuss exception handling in Python. Okay, so before going to exception, let's understand why this happens or what is mean by exception first. So in programming, there are two types of errors. First one is a compile time error. So this is mostly related to syntax of your program. But let's say your everything is correct, syntax is correct, and if you are trying to execute your program, but while executing the program, even though syntax and everything is correct, we may get different types of errors. So let's say if you are trying to read the file, okay, so if you are trying to read the file and the file is not exist, okay, so Python will, or any of the programming language will throw error. So that type of error is represented by the some exceptions. So for that, a file not found exception is raised. File not found. So this is one example. And when you will got to know whether the file is found or not found, obviously whenever you are running the program. So that's why another type of error is runtime error. So mostly resources related errors we will get. So value is not correct. Okay. So value error. Sometimes we may face type is not correct, whatever the type we are passing as an argument. So that is not correct. So type error you will get. So these are the kinds of error. Even if you try to perform the division by 0, so you will get 0 division error. Okay. Meaning these are the exceptions. File not found is exception, value error is exception, type error is exception. So even 0 division error or exception, okay, whatever is good for you, you can refer that. So these are the kinds of errors. So like this, we have so many types of errors. And obviously when the error happens, your program execution will be stopped. Okay. And that's what we have to handle. Okay. So in any case, our program execution should be completed. Whether you got error, you do not get error. So if we don't get error, obviously it will get completed. But if you get the error, you need to handle that error in different way, and that is what the exception handling. Okay, so definitions are little bit weird, but yeah, this is what I said is the exceptions. Okay, so when error happens at the runtime or while execution of the program, so it will represent that error. So now let's see how we can do this. So for Python, okay, but even not only the Python, okay, if you go for the Java and all, so try except this, these are the blocks in exception that we use: try, except, else, and finally in case of Python. But let's say if you are with Java, so definitely you will get the different name of block, but the purpose remains same. Purpose is not going to change at all during any of the programming languages. Okay, so here if I start, okay, so yeah, here you can see that in my presentation, you can see that there is try block, except block. So let's see when or how these blocks are works. Okay, so whenever you are writing a code, you may came across the any kind of error. And if you are familiar with that error, familiar meaning if you have a sense that this line of code may throw error, so you can put that code into the try block. Okay. So if any error happens during the execution in the try block, that exception will be catched by except block. Okay, so except block is there to catch and handle the specific exceptions. So you can have the another code here to handle that in except block. Okay, even not only single, you can have multiple except block also. Okay, for the different types of error. Then what is the else block? So else block is optional. Okay, it is mandatory to have whenever you are trying to handle the exceptions. So try block and except block is mandatory. You need to use both together. Okay, but else is optional block and is executed if no exception occur, meaning if you do not get any kind of error during the execution in the try block, then else block will be executed. And at last there is a block called finally block, that is even optional. If you want to use, otherwise you can skip, but is always executed in case if you get the error, if you get the exception. If you do not get the exceptions, finally block is going to execute. So what is the use of this block? So let's say you are trying to open the one of the file. So file you have opened successfully, or let's say you may have connected to the database. Okay, so your connection objects got created successfully, but later on you got a error while performing some kind of operations and all with respect to database. So your connection will be in open state, right? So if you want to close that, you can use the final block. If you get the error, if you do not get the error, finally block is going to execute in both the situations. So here, if you want to close your open resources or the required task, if you want to perform, if you whether you get a error or whether you do not get a error, so in that case we use finally block. Now let's understand this on the program. Okay, so here, okay, let's say x is my variable, and I'm going to take the input from user, or let's say I have to convert whatever the input is there. Okay, whatever the number is there, I have to convert that into integer. So what I did, number. Okay, so this is how I have given the message for the user using input. And by default, whenever you use the input, okay, whenever you take the input, that will be in the string format. Okay, so the return type of input function is string, but I am going to cast that into the integer. Okay, then if I say print x, so this is what my small program, and I'm going to execute this. If I say webjam dot py, fine, and if I enter the number, it will get converted. Okay, but if I run the code and if I enter the ABC here, what it will do? So it is going to give me the error. What it says, value error. So this is what the type of exception. This is what the type of exception. So invalid literal for int with the base 10. Okay, so this is not valid for this function, for int function, right? So these kind of errors are there. So like this, there are many types of errors you may come across the uh, execution of program. So what you can do, we can use the exception handling and give the appropriate message to the user also. So if I say try, okay, and try, if I start, so it says at least one except block it should have. Okay, so except, so how to receive, what is the use of exceptions to receive whatever the error is occurred in the try block. So we have to receive that. Okay. For that purpose, what we can do, we can use exception. Exception is a base class for all the types of exceptions. So from this class, all other exceptions are derived, meaning value error, zero division error, file not found error. So these are the kinds of errors are derived, meaning the child class of this. So I'm using parent here so that it can handle all the types of exceptions. Okay. So except as E. And here, if I say print E, so E is going to hold the error. If you want to give the different message, you can give. Okay. If no error occurs, except block is not going to execute. Okay. So let me do in this way. Right. So try. Now let's run the code. Same message you will see, but here I will see except block executed to show you. Okay. So now let's run the code. If I run this, if I enter the number, okay, 10. Here you do not get a message from except block. Okay. So here, if I try to run once again and if I enter ABC, except block executed, right? And meaning why this is getting executed, we have entered invalid value. So earlier we had seen different types of message, but here invalidated for the, this is what the message they have given. Okay. So you can give your own message, and also that is different story. But yes. So now let's say here you got an incorrect input. So what you can do, you can write your own code here. But except is a representation for all the types of error. Let's say you may want to handle the, or you may want to check for the specific types of error. So you can have multiple except blocks. So here I can say value error as a E. Okay. And if I say print value is not correct, I will say please enter number. Okay. So now what will happen? If any error occurs, and if it is of type value error, this except block will get executed instead of getting executed, meaning this block will not get executed. Okay. So at a time, only one block will get executed. So on next line, you may have the different types of errors. So let's say there is something called input. Okay, input is not there, but if you are reading the file or if you are performing the division, so zero division error as a E. And here you can give the message cannot divide by 0, right? So this is how you can handle. And if this type of exception is not occurred, this type of exception is not occurred, by default it will come to the last, right? So now let's go and execute this. If I enter the number, if I say ABC, it will show the value is not correct, please enter number. Okay. Now here let's say your input is correct. Okay, your input is correct. And if I say y is equal to 100 divided by x. Okay. If you enter 0, obviously that is number, right? And it will throw the different types of error. Now here, if I say, if this gets passed, it will print the y. Otherwise, it will throw the zero division error. Okay. If I run this, if I enter 100 divided by 100, you can see 1. If I run once again and if I enter 0, you can see cannot divide by 0. Right? So this is what the exception. So we can give our message here to user what is going wrong. So this is how we can handle the exceptions to avoid the abnormal termination of your program. Here you can have different logic. That is your wishes. Okay. So now let's say in some cases what happens, we do not get error, and if we do not get error, we have to perform something. Okay. But we have to perform something when we do not get error in that case. Okay. So in that case, we can use else block to write something to perform something. And here I will just say, okay, so no exception occurs, right? So when there is no exception occurs, else block will get executed. And as I said, if if we may get error or we may not get error, but still if you want to perform something, so I can say close opened resources here in finally block, right? So this is how exceptions are handled. If I run this, okay, if we get error, okay, so here you can see that close opened resources here. So anyhow, if we get exception or we may not get exceptions in our program, this finally block will get executed. But we, if in case if we do not get error, if I enter 10, so no exception occurred, still finally block is getting executed, right? So this is a try block. Except block will executed only when exception occurs. Else block will executed only when exception do not occurs, but finally will get executed in both the situations. Okay. So this is how exception handling in any of the programming languages, not only in the Python, works. So I hope you like the content of this video. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a nice day. Please do not forget to share this video with your friends.